I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong.
Hello, hello, hello.
You know, diversification, that's for idiots. Diversification, that's for idiots. Diversification, that's for idiots. Idiots.
Diversification is for idiots. Oh my God, did he really say that? Yes, he did. And you know what? It's actually kind of true. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Yeah, we all heard that, probably many times. But is it actually true? Putting all your eggs in one basket, is that really bad? Well, logic dictates, yes, it's really, really bad. In this video, I'll give my view on diversification, and I will back it up with Warren Buffett, Mark Cuban, and others, explaining why they also don't believe in diversification, at least as it's commonly practiced. Let's first establish why diversify, and who should diversify, and lastly, why you really can't be truly diversified. Why diversify? Well, that's something everyone can understand. If we invest our life savings in one or a few single assets, you could really get screwed. We all know that the world economy moves in cycles, and those will affect the different asset classes over time. The question is, how much and at what time? Some people will put a part of their portfolio in gold, some believe you need your age as a percentage in bonds, because as you get older, you will need that stability. As all this is true, it's important to incorporate timing. If you're a young person just starting out, it's not that important to diversify. At that stage, you need growth. As you will experience a lower return if you are diversified in the beginning, we really need to build wealth fast to get that big snowball rolling, which will compound a lot faster later on. Let's look at an example. If a person invested $3,000 every year in the total US stock market from 2018 to now, the return would have been $27,316. That's around 45 compound annual growth rate. If the same person had invested $3,000 every year in, let's say, Apple, the return would have been $51,491, giving us almost 62% compound annual growth. That's almost 2 times as much in 5 years. Yes, the risk in a single company, even if it's Apple, would be a lot higher, but the returns outweigh that risk, at least in my opinion, and especially when the period is that short. Let's say Apple dropped 40% in 2023. You would still have a lot more than if you had invested in VTI, which, by the way, would also have dropped a lot if Apple dropped. This brings us to the who should diversify part. So let's hear from Warren Buffett and what he thinks of diversification.
We think diversification is, as practiced generally, makes very little sense for anyone that knows what they're doing. Diversification is a protection against ignorance. I mean, if you want to make sure that nothing bad happens to you relative to the market, you own everything. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that is a perfectly sound approach for somebody who does not feel they know how to analyze businesses. If you know how to analyze businesses and value businesses, it's crazy to own 50 stocks or 40 stocks or 30 stocks probably, because there aren't that many wonderful businesses that are understandable to a single human being in all likelihood, and to have some super wonderful business and then put money in number 30 or 35 on your list of attractiveness and forego putting more money into number 1 just strikes Charlie and me as madness. And it's conventional practice, and it may, if all you have to achieve is average, it may preserve your job, but it's a confession in our view that you don't really understand the businesses that you own. On a personal portfolio basis, I own 1 stock, but it's a business I know, and it leaves me very comfortable. So, do I need to own 28 stocks in order to, have proper diversification? It'd be nonsense. A really wonderful business is very well protected against the vicissitudes of the economy over time and the competition. I mean, we're talking about businesses that are resistant to effective competition. And 3 of those will be better than 100 average businesses. And they'll be safer, incidentally. I mean, there is less risk in owning 3 easy-to-identify wonderful businesses than there is in owning 50 well-known big businesses. And it's amazing what has been taught over the years in finance classes about that. But, Charlie?
Yeah, what he's saying is that much of what is taught in modern corporate finance courses is twaddle.
Well, the need for diversification is highly dependent on a lot of factors, and also why Mark Cuban says diversification is for idiots. It's not meant that demeaning. It's just a conclusion on most people don't have the time, the knowledge, the energy, the stamina to do the research, read balance sheets every day. So those people will probably need to diversify in some manner. Just buy the whole haystack, as Vanguard founder Jack Bogle used to say. I do believe in some sort of diversification, but not the way most people think of it. I have a high tolerance for pain and can handle seeing, for instance, my Tesla position go down 40%, as I have done the research and I know what the intrinsic value is and where Tesla will be in around 5 to 10 years. But I also acknowledge that I need to retire at some point, and then I would like to have a steady income and not needing to sell my Tesla stock when it's down 30 or 40%. Let's hear a short clip from Mark Cuban about his ideas.
So you make one-way bets. This isn't portfolio balancing you're talking about.
No, all that asset management, diversification, that's for idiots, right? Because you can't diversify enough to know what you're doing, right? I mean, now I say it's great because I've taken a whole different approach to investing than most people. I think buy and hold's a crock of I think, the idea that you always have to invest your cash is not far behind. And so I've always been of the attitude that unless you really have a commitment to something, just keep your money in cash, knowing that at some point in time, there's going to be a week or two like we've had. See, that's the whole thing. I don't have to spend much time until it hits the fan. But then when everything starts getting crazy, I call it the World Series of investing. That's when you start digging in.
And what Warren Buffett and Mark Cuban are saying here is that you really can't diversify enough. Let's take a quick look at that. If we wanted a portfolio to sustain us at retirement, and we want this portfolio to have a fairly nice growth and preferably also low risk, we could invest in the S&P 500, giving us access to the high growth tech sector, the financial sector, healthcare, energy, basically the 500 best public traded companies in the US. But what happens if the tech sector gets hit hard? It's almost a third of the holdings in the S&P 500. And if the tech sector gets hit and it lasted a couple of years, that would be terrible for the portfolio returns. So we need to diversify broader than the S&P 500. Note that from 2000 to 2013, the S&P 500 was basically flat. So over a decade, your portfolio would have moved nowhere. If this happens during retirement, you're in trouble. Okay, so we need to go broader. We could choose to invest in the entire US stock market, like for instance Vanguard's VTI. Now we have the whole US stock market, and if the tech sector gets hit, well, we also have everything else to compensate. Usually, if one sector gets hit, several others get a boost. But what happens if we go into a long recession? And even worse, it happens during retirement. Then your portfolio would get depleted really fast. So we need to diversify even more. How about the entire world stock market? Well, using Vanguard's VT, we get a slice of the big stock markets around the world. Though it's still 68% US stocks. But you get the idea here. How much is enough and how much do you need to spread out if you really want to be diversified? It's all about perspective and size. We would need to diversify into all the different asset classes and all over the world. And we would have to spread our portfolio so thin that it would probably not even be able to keep up with inflation. But we would have almost no risk then. This is what Warren Buffett, Mark Cuban, and the other OGs mean when they say diversification is for idiots. Because you won't get the gains needed and you will miss out on the cycles happening. And if you only spent a little time to investigate and educate yourself, then you could easily find a great business. This could give you great results and with a fairly low risk too. Even though Warren Buffett always talks about finding that great business and sticking to it, he is no stranger to selling. When something changes, the fundamentals change or something else, he will sell. Just look at his track record. There's only a few companies that Berkshire has been holding on to for like forever. Something like Coca-Cola and Apple. But they will sell if the fundamentals change. This actually brings me to another relevant topic. I am somewhat a believer in time in the market is better than timing the market. But that does not mean buy and hold forever. Just as Mark Cuban says, things change, the world changes. Only exceptional few companies can go on growing for 50 years or more. So holding on to a company forever is not the best strategy. You need to know when to exit and take profits, or at least have a plan for it. Maybe you won't reach the exact valuation you wanted to exit at, but you mentally have prepared yourself to exit a great company when it hits your criteria. Even Warren Buffett and others do this. They sell when fundamentals change or the story changes or it reaches their maximum valuation. You know, when a company stock gets ahead of itself. Just like Tesla did when it hit $1,200 per share before a stock split, so that equals around $400 per share today. Everyone with a half a brain could see that the sentiment got way ahead of the fundamentals. And even if I'm a serious Tesla bull, I knew this was a good time to take some profits. Although I never thought Tesla would get down to $100 a share, and at that time, I also knew this was a ridiculous low price and needed to load up even more. You could see my video on when to sell a stock. There I go through the different reasons you should have planned out for every one of your investments beforehand. In my stock tracker, I regularly update my exit price for each of my holdings, so I know when they reach that level of intrinsic value, it's time to either trim or sell. I have the same on the downside, so I know when I need to buy more. So what's the conclusion? As with everything else in life, the answer is, it depends. It depends on your age, it depends on your income, your drive, your ability to learn, your ability to withstand emotional decision making, and where you are in life. That's why Warren Buffett says the average person should just buy the S&P 500 and get on with their life and let the money do the work. I really hate to say it, but I believe the combination of buying high conviction growth companies and selling them when the market has mispriced them, and at the same time building a portfolio with dividend-paying companies could be the best way to be diversified a bit and still getting 12 to 15% compound annual growth. It will pay out enough for the monthly basic expenses. Nice. Then I have my speculative portfolio. This is just a fun portfolio where I find companies I believe have a high return in a short period. And here I trade around. This is a tax-exempt portfolio, so I can really play in here. This is not a large portfolio, but it helps a lot when I experience that itch or the need for doing something.
I feel the need for speed. Ow!
I have been accumulating cash for almost 12 months now, waiting for the interest rates to drop, as I believe this will initially spark a rally, but will create a crash in the market as it's happened every single time the Fed's funds rate has dropped. And I also don't like the prices right now. I believe we are almost at the top of the market. So I'm staying cash heavy until my watch list companies hit the price I have calculated as their intrinsic value of said companies. So there's no shame in waiting for the right price, and in the meantime I can look into speculative companies and play with small amounts, as even small amount in a speculative company can become a lot. That's a level of diversification I do. What about you? Let me know in the comments. What are you doing? If you got any value from this video, please give it a like and help the channel grow, and I hope to see you in the next video. Remember, the best investment you can do is in you. The more you learn, the more you earn. Bye.
I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong. Let's break it down for a minute. I want the crown, I'm gon' get it. You hear me loud, man, I'm winning. Yeah, Charlie Sheen will be grinning. These ladies know that I'm sinning, and this is just the beginning. I'm closing in the ninth inning. There ain't no point in resisting. Living